Hi guys, today we're going to make simple southern greens with smoked pork neck bone. So I'm going to go through the recipe, and this is very simple. I make this a lot. I'm going to use 4 bunches of collards, but the first thing we're going to do is get 2 gallons of water in a large stock pot. I have my frozen smoked pork neck bone. I pick the ones that have a lot of meat, and I'm going to go ahead and add those to my water. So I normally get probably about 4, maybe 3 to 4 pounds if I'm going to make 4 bunches. So I'm going to make a lot of greens. I'm prepping them now for Thanksgiving, but I'm going to put them in the freezer. I'm just trying to get some of this food done ahead of time so I don't have to rush so much for Thanksgiving Day. So I'm just going to add all these to my pot, and the very first thing we do in this process is going to be to boil these down for about an hour and a half until they're tender. I'm going to go ahead and season my water. So I use Reese's seasoned salt, just a little bit of crushed red pepper, and green seasoning. I don't use very much of this because it has a lot of the same ingredients that I'm already putting in here. And the main flavor is going to come from the smoked pork neck bone. So that's where you're going to get your meaty flavor. So minced onion and garlic powder. And then I use a Lowry seasoning. I'm not sure how to say this. I guess it's cassetto, but I use this for everything. So I put that in there, and then we're going to let this come to a boil, and then I cover and just let it boil for about an hour and a half, and we'll check back on it. Once it's tender, I'll strain them, but this is the first step before I start cutting my greens or anything. This is the first thing that I do, so this can be boiling while I'm cutting my greens up. And this is going to be an all-day process, so start early or do it the day before if you have a lot of other things that you need to cook. This is definitely a labor of love. So stir that up and cover it. So here are my bunches of greens. I went ahead and broke them off the bottom, and I just take them one at a time and I cut the middle stalk out. And this goes really quickly as long as you have a sharp knife and a cutting board. You just lay them flat and you'll just cut the spine. Some people use scissors, and I'm doing this to show you that it takes a lot more time to use scissors than it does to just use a sharp knife. So I'm just going to show you guys a couple of these on video. I'm not going to make you watch me do the whole thing, and then I'll come back once those are done. So for these little small bits that are on the inside of your bunch of greens, they're really crunchy, so I just take those and just break them apart. There's no sense in trying to get the stalk out of those because they're going to be really tender anyways. So now this is the technique I use to cut my greens, and everybody probably has a different way to do this. But I'll take my leaves and I try to put a bigger leaf on the bottom, and I stack them up so it's kind of thick, and then I'm gonna roll them up. So I probably have about 6 or 7 leaves. It's up to you, however, so it's not hard for you to roll or cut, and you'll kind of figure your own niche out once you're doing it. So I just roll these up really tight because I don't want them to unravel. I want them to be easy to cut through, and then I just slice them, kind of like you're just cutting spirals. I slice them thin. I kind of want them to look, I guess, like linguine, about that thick, but that's totally up to you how you want to cut them. This is just my preference. I like the way they cook better, and to me they're just a little easier to eat when they're like this. So I'll do this to all of them, and then I will come back and show you guys my cleaning process. I haven't cleaned them at all at this point. I'm just cutting them, and I like to cut them all and clean them next. So I'll come back and show you guys that step. So here's all the greens. I'm done shredding them. And so now we're going to get ready to clean them. This is what they should look like. And now we're going to do our salt water rinse and let them soak. So just make sure your sink is really clean. And I do warm water. So I start with really hot water at first, actually. And then I just turn the cold water on towards the end. That's just a personal preference. It doesn't make a difference, I don't think. So I'm going to add all my shredded greens in. Now I let these soak for a while, probably 30 or 45 minutes, just to make sure they're clean and rinsed off. And I'll come through and agitate them once they're in the water for a while, and I'll make a few trips back in the kitchen just to move them around and make sure any dirt or anything that might be in them will settle to the bottom. So right now I'm over in the cabinet looking for salt, but I'm gonna put just some regular Morton's table salt in here, and this is a step you don't have to do. I just do this because I think the coarseness of the salt kind of helps me clean the leaves off a little bit. And all of this is gonna get rinsed off and rinsed down the drain, but this is just a step that I take just to help me clean my greens a little bit better. And so I'll let you finish watching me do this. I'm just stirring them up, and I'll come back for the next step. Okay, so now it's time to do the final rinse. I'm going to move them over to my clean pan, and then I'm going to transport them over to the water when that time is ready. But right now I'm just doing the final rinse and moving them out of the water so I can clean this part of the sink out. The next thing we're going to do is pull the neck bone. They should be tender by now. I'm going to pull those and let them cool off, and then I like to take the bones. I debone my neck bone just because it's easier for me and my family to eat greens without having to pick the bones out. Again, that's a personal preference. It takes a lot more time to do that, so that's the step I'm going to do next. And I'm just taking the greens out right now and getting them ready to go over to the liquid once I get the neck bone out of the pot. Okay, so I've got the sink cleaned out and I got my neck bones pulled out, and now I'm going to strain the liquid. I'm going to use the liquid, of course, to cook the greens in, but I want to strain it because bone pieces or anything like that could go back in the bottom of the pot, and I want to make sure I get all of that out before I put the greens in. I don't want there to be any bones or any pieces, and so you can see a lot of stuff settle in the bottom of the pot right there. So I'm actually gonna add water to the pot and just rinse it around so I can get all of that debris out of the bottom. And then I'm gonna go back over to the stove, and I've got my stove on high so I'll be able to bring that back to a boil, but I'm adding all my greens in now. Now your greens, there should be a lot less water than your greens. That is going to boil down. your greens are going to you're probably going to lose about 50% of mass once you cook your greens. So don't overfill your greens with water, or else you'll have soupy greens. But again, if you like them like that, that's fine. But we don't like to have a whole lot of liquid in ours, and they will cook down. So I'm just adding all the greens here now, and then I will cover this up and let it boil probably for about 45 minutes or so until everything is really tender. But once I've got this covered, I'm going to go over once my neck bones are cooled, and I'm going to start picking those to get all the meat and the fat off the bones so I can add that back to my pot. So just keep watching and I'll come back. So now we're going to take apart the neck bone. They're really, really hot, so you may want to let them cool down. I'm just doing this right now to kind of show you how tender it needs to be. Normally boiling them for about an hour will make them this tender, but it should easily pull away from the bone. And it's gonna be really hot right now, so this is very hot for me. And then I let them cool, and then I came back and I shredded them all up, and this is what that should yield. And if you see, like I'll show you, it's really tender. It will just fall apart in your hand. And then I'm gonna add this meat back to the pot, and this is gonna continue to break down and just add to the flavor of the neck bone. It's gonna be so delicious, guys. Neck bone is probably the best tasting piece of meat on pork, on a pig. It's our absolute favorite. So now I'm going to stir these up before I add the meat in there, just because you don't want the bottom to overcook and then the top not. So make sure you're definitely you're stirring these up, and you can see how much the greens have reduced since everything started boiling and has been in here. But just make sure you're periodically stirring these. You don't want them to cook unevenly. And then I'm going to add all my meat back in here, and I'll push that around, push some of it to the bottom, and just stir that around too, because you want this to continue to break down even though it's already tender. There's a lot of fat in this meat, so you want that to be able to break all the way down. And then I'm just going to cover this up and let it sit for about 45 minutes. Well, cook it for about 45 more minutes, and then I'll show you the final result when it's all done. So here it is, guys. This is smoked neck bone and collard greens, the simple way, not the fast way, but it is simple. And it is so worth it. Everybody is going to love these. And this is also in my cookbook. It's called Comfort Food for the Soul, and you can find that book on Barnes & Noble. My name is Jessica K. Williams, so you can look that up. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see any other videos from me, just let me know in the comments.